Welcome to Black Gems Unearthed! My name is Jazz, and today I'm standing in the Salem Maritime National Park to talk about how Black people first came to Massachusetts. Black people did not come here on their own free will. They were enslaved and brought to Massachusetts. And Salem is actually home to the very first American slave voyage. So in 1636, Marblehead, Massachusetts is where the ship was created, the Desire. The Desire ship would have left somewhere along the Salem shoreline to depart and bring back enslaved Africans. We know about this voyage thanks to John Winthrop. Winthrop was the governor of Massachusetts, and he also was a leading figure in the Mass Bay colony. He wrote in his journal that William Pierce, a Boston sea captain, spent 7 months in the Indies, where he went to Providence Island, which is off of now present-day Nicaragua. And he brought back with him cotton, tobacco, Negroes, and salt. The enslaved Africans were referenced as Negroes in this journal. I asked myself when I learned this, why would William Pierce need to bring back or want to bring back enslaved Africans to Massachusetts, to this area where the Puritans were establishing colonies? And I thought back to school where we learned that the Puritans, they followed the footsteps of the Pilgrims who established a colony in Plymouth, and they wanted to get free from the Church of England because they wanted to create their own godly society, one that others could emulate. And they wanted to be this beacon of hope. That's the Puritans that we learned about. All this is true. What I learned, though, is that there's more to the story. The book Black Lives, Native Lands, White Worlds goes into the economics behind the colonies. The Puritan colony and the Pilgrim colonies were backed by trading companies. So that means that they needed the colonists to actually realize a profit. They weren't doing this just to establish a new world. They expected profits from what they were doing there. So that meant that the Puritans and Pilgrims had to figure out what's the best way to make a profit and be able to trade. They decided that the best way to do this was to enslave people. And this could be in part due to the feedback that John Smith had from his trip in 1614 to present-day Massachusetts in Maine. In 1614, he came up here exploring to see what was here, and he wrote down in his travels that with enough military force, any colonist could subdue the Indians and use them for labor or even trade them for Africans. The colonists had their charter from England and came to this new world, but this world was not new. There were already many people that had lived here for centuries, many tribes, from the Wampanoag to the Nipmuc to the Massachusetts, and many more. They all had been here from centuries with their own culture and their own way of life that the colonists intruded upon in order to create their godly society. So many of these tribes were decimated by the diseases that the colonists brought. Diseases like yellow fever and the smallpox. Those that were okay and able to survive the diseases had to deal with the colonists and come to some type of agreement over the land. And the agreements were really done just to stay safe from the colonists. One example I learned came from the Indian Country news website. Ramona Peters, who was the cultural historian for the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe back in 2017, she shared with that news outlet that the Wampanoag Pilgrim Treaty of 1621 was not as rosy as it seems. The Wampanoag tribe signed off on this agreement really as a defense mechanism because the colonists came on these ships with heavy artillery, cannons, and other weapons that could have destroyed the tribe. And so there was always this tension over the land, and battles and wars even broke out. In particular, the war of the Pequot Tribe in the Connecticut River Valley was a big one. There were some 700 people that were murdered or taken as prisoners from that war between the colonists, the Pequot Tribe, and other tribes that actually fought on the side of the colonists, like the Mohegans and the Narragansetts. And so from this war, William Pierce took people, people from the Pequot Tribe that were prisoners from the war. He put them on the Desire ship and brought them to Providence Island to exchange them for enslaved African people. So the colonists did take the feedback, the suggestion from John Smith to supplement the labor of Indian people for Africans. So that is how Black people first came to Massachusetts. We came as enslaved Africans in order to do work for the colonists that needed to be profitable on the land of American Indians. So feel free to take a look down below in this video to see some of the sources that I learned this information from. And stay tuned to Black Gems Unearthed to learn more Black history with me, Jazz.